Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Living Mythology, I am greatly honored to be here with scholars from the Edge of Time, Nicholas Diak, Michele, Brittany, and with a special guest appearance by the one, the only Cecily. Greetings and welcome, scholars.
Yes, she is our producer. She's here. She's our podcast kitty. So I'm sure she'll. Oh, there she is.
She's very
She'll.
good at correspondence and keeping me up to date on everything that's going on, so she's doing a great job.
Yes, she is. Yes, and she will. You'll probably hear her meow a little bit more.
Those show
Till
notes
she
for her
gets
commentary.
settled down. Yes, yes. Well, thank you very much for the torch, Hercules. It's nice to do another month of Scholars from the Edge of Time. And
No.
Nick, do you want to get us started on kind of an update on
Life-
what all's been going on?
Yeah, I have show and tell per usual, but our producer wants to nibble on it. All right, well, I'll start from the top. That's nothing to do with me, but I want to brag it off. Well, not brag it off because that's nothing to do with me. We have a friend named Joshua Pruitt. He's a TV writer mostly. Like he does Phineas and Herb. He worked on an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. But he's also an author, and he had a new book that just came out. He writes middle grade and kids books. His new book is called Hero and the Argonauts, the best book ever written by a boy named after a sandwich. I haven't read it yet because it's hot off the presses. I just got it, but from what I gather, it's about Hero back in ancient Greece. He likes the Argonauts, and when he meets them, they're kind of meh. They're kind of full of themselves. So instead, he falls in love with all the monsters that the Argonauts meet. I
Ah,
I think that's the gist of it. Again, haven't read it. I'm excited to read it. I don't see much. I'm going to call it kid peplum. I don't see much kid peplum out there, but that's what it is. But I mean, with a name like Hero and the Argonauts, come on, and even there's a hero on the back.
awesome.
So I wanted to give a shout out for his new book, and yeah, you might I don't know if you read Kid Peplum, but maybe something to check out.
Thank you for letting me know about that. I have a library full of Argonaut books, some of them very odd. Uh, so I would love to check that out too.
Cool. Yeah, I always think Jason the Argonauts is one of the, I don't want to say better, but more funner. I don't know. Let's just be honest. It's the Harryhausen movie that really makes that story. But remember, I think it was 3 years ago we watched Ice Pirates, and that's takeoff of Jason the Argonauts. It's just a good, malleable story, I think.
Well, I think when you start off with a solid story, there's a lot of things that you can play with a story, and obviously Ice Pirates, which we both liked quite a bit, and it was zany. It just shows the endurance of a lot of the mythology from antiquity.
Well, I know we usually go back and forth, but I do have to interject with one other thing real quick because it's totally topical. We were out music shopping the day after my birthday, or 2 days after my birthday, whatever, don't matter. We were out music shopping. Went to the store. It's called Zia's Records. They had a little Laserdisc section, and for $1 I bought Jason and the Argonauts on Laserdisc.
All
So
right.
so speaking of Jason in there, I don't have a laser disc player, but come on, how cool is that?
Well, and it's neat because if you show the center,
Oh,
the back,
the back has an essay, back
Yeah.
when they didn't do essays, and
yeah, and then the
it has his journey.
yeah,
Oh,
which is really cool. I mean, and these are all the fun things, and it's a Criterion collection on top of it. So very, very good item to have in the library.
so I've got Hero and the Argonauts and Jason and the Argonauts.
Two things I do not have, so now I must quest for them so that my collection can be complete as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Too bad there wasn't a second copy of that.
Oh, that
But
would have been cool.
Can't
Especially
believe
for
it was
a
a
dollar.
dollar.
Dollar
Yeah,
steal.
just kind of crazy.
All right. To you.
I just keep working co-editing the Mummy book, so that's kind of what's going on right now. It's with our writers as they review the feedback from the blind. Um, they're not blind, but it was blind review process. So yeah, they're working on that, and we'll get back into that. I think end of July. So that's kind of where that's at. Back at you.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Writing stuff. Just I'm trying to crank them out. I think the last time we met, I said I was reviewing the Neo Jungle Girl comic series, Vanya, the Lost Warrior. So I've got issues 3 and 4. I've censored one. The other one I don't need to hold on. Not censor, but it's basically Sheena with more nudity. So I've got 8 of these to review. I've now up to 4 of them. It's been, female Tarzan, kind of interesting to read. I have some Edgar Rice Burroughs journal people who are interested in, reprinting my reviews and stuff. So that's kind of why I'm kind of focused on those. But yeah, if you want to go to my website, the last couple articles I have are reviews for a Jungle Girl comic called Vanya.
You're very consistent and timely with all of that.
Oh no. Issue 8 just came out. Issue 4, which I just reviewed, came out 2 years ago. But
Well,
I will catch up though at the rate I'm going. I'll get caught up in a couple months.
but is that series a Kickstarter?
Mhm. It's a
So that
Kickstarter.
explains why, the reviews are, at intervals.
That and just I have taken on way more yeses for projects and writing and not enough no's. So yeah, some of that self-imposed. Nick, you should really do a review of this. Nick, you should do a review of this. I'll do it later. Oh my God, it's now later. Where did all this stuff come from, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
All right, back to you.
No, I don't have anything else.
You do.
What?
You have a vidcast you do.
I haven't.
The-
Oh,
New episodes are dropping every Friday still. You promote your vidcast.
oh, I'm sorry. I mean, we haven't recorded for a little while, but Ride the Stream, in which my co-host Travis and we discuss the series Lost, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary. There hasn't been a lot of fanfare, but I had never watched the series, but Travis had, back when it was being broadcast, I think from season 4 on. But it was not one that I had ever watched. So he and I discuss weekly each episode. We get a little long in the discussion, but it's really a passion project. So those drop every week. Ride the Stream is the YouTube channel. So people can go and watch, listen, count how many cats get make appearances in each video. So for that, usually it's Algernon, not so much Cecily, but Algernon.
Her office is more conducive to nooks and crannies for cats to appear on, so there's a lot more cat activity on that vidcast.
Yeah. So
But I think episode 25 just dropped last Friday, and I think tomorrow episode 26. Somewhere in the mid-20s.
So
That's
the
awesome.
the next 2 episodes that are dropping are ones where Travis and I kind of go back through and discuss season 1, because there's 25 episodes of season 1, and then we spend 2 episodes kind of recapping, talking about each character, our thoughts about them, and then we do kind of like our top 3 favorite I don't know, scenes from season 1 and things like that. So it's two episodes, but I think that Travis might have put them together, so they're just one long episode. But we hope to get back into discussing season 2. He's on vacation right now. So after he's back, we'll be getting back into that. And as well as we still want to discuss some other kind of limited series that are out there that are streaming, since it's called Ride the Stream. So we'll see what happens with that. Okay, back to you.
I never saw Lost, but I picked up the first 3 seasons for like $1 a piece when I went to the thrift shop not too long ago.
Yeah,
Box style.
yeah, I actually really enjoyed the first season. I really hope that it kind of maintains the level of writing and engagement by the audience as a result of the narrative story. But season one was amazing. Just absolutely was enamored by it. So anyway, back to you.
That's it for me.
Oh, okay.
Just comic book reviews here on the Argonauts and Jason and the Argonauts. I'm ready to talk about some other mythology committed to celluloid that's done by Ray Harryhausen. That's not Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah, so should we talk about why we're doing it?
Let's do it. So, I have never seen this. You would think I would have watched this by now, but went and picked up a little 3-movie set of Clash of the Titans, Clash of the Titans, and Wrath of the Titans. So guess what the next 3 episodes of Scholars we're going to be talking about?
Clash of the Titans, Clash of the Titans, and Wrath of the Titans.
Heck yeah!
Bingo.
So tonight,
There's one they didn't include.
what's that?
There was an animated cartoon of Wrath of the Titans years before they made a motion picture of it.
Well, I gotta track that down then if it's been
So-
released or streamed or something.
Yeah, definitely. Now for background, okay, so you hadn't ever seen any of these movies, and I know that recently, I think Netflix added Wrath of the Titans, and so I mentioned it to Nick, like, hey, maybe we should discuss this on Scholars. And I said, but wait a minute, did you see any of the other movies? And he was like, no.
I
And
have them.
Yeah, so my background is I saw the original Clash of the Titans from 1981 and I did see it in the theater. So I come from that experience versus Nick, who got to see it for the first time last night. And so that gives a little background, a little lay of our watching experience with regards to the movies. I don't think I had seen the movie for quite a long time. If I saw it, I may have seen it like maybe once or twice from the original premiere back in 1981.
Sorry, there's a cat that needs love.
Yep.
All right, so we are going to talk about the original 81 Clash of the Titans movie that came out the same year as Return of the Jedi, if I'm not mistaken, just to kind of give a little 2 fantasy movies with similar technology that came out at the same time. All right. Baby Perseus, son of Zeus, and his mother Danae are tossed into the sea by King of Argos. Zeus does not like this one bit, and he releases the Kraken on Argos, destroying the city. Perseus and his mom float to the island of Seriphos, where he has a nice childhood and grows up. But the goddess Thetis, she wants Zeus to spare her son Calibos, who has been pretty naughty lately, but Zeus says no, and instead he turns Calibos into a long-tailed monster and exiles him to a swamp. Thetis, who sees Zeus spoil Perseus and have no mercy on her own son, she plucks up Perseus and puts him down in the cursed kingdom of Joppa. Cursed, since Princess Andromeda, who was supposed to have been wed to Calibos but couldn't do it for obvious reasons, and all the suitors that come to try to marry her, they're asked a riddle, and they always get it wrong, and then they're burned alive, because that's how they do things. Transported to these strange lands, Perseus starts on his adventure. He is gifted a magic sword, a helmet that can grant invisibility, and a shield, all gifts from Zeus. He also befriends the riot poet philosopher Ammon, the first of many companions that Perseus will meet in his adventure. Using the invisible shield, Perseus sneaks into Andromeda's room and falls in love with her at first sight. He witnesses her soul leave her body, enter a cage, and flown away by a giant buzzard. With the help of Ammon, Perseus captures and tames the last of the Pegasus, which he uses to follow the buzzard, who flies into the swamp of Calibos. There, Calibos tries to convince Andromeda to love him again, but she says no. So he gives her a new riddle and sends her on her way. Perseus watches all this unfold and is caught by Calibos, and they get into a battle. Perseus loses his helm in the swamp, but he lops off Calibos's arm. The next day, Perseus presents himself as a suitor to Andromeda, answers the riddle correctly, and tosses Calibos's arm to the floor. The curse is lifted. Andromeda and Perseus are to get married by Andromeda's mother, Cassiopeia, and they all live happily ever after. The end. Or is it? Calibos comes to the city and pleads to a statue of his mother for revenge, and Thetis grants this. In 30 days, the town has to sacrifice Andromeda to the Kraken, or he will destroy everything. How to stop the Kraken? No one knows, except maybe 3 blind witches. Perseus, Andromeda, and some soldiers set off to find the blind witches. They take the Pegasus, but someone, Calibos, coughed and kidnapped the steed. To help out in the quest, Zeus commands Athena to send Perseus her pet owl Bubo to help out. Instead, she has a clockwork owl crafted instead and sent on to help out Perseus. This owl is overpowered as heck. It practically saves the day over and over again throughout the rest of the movie. The owl guides Perseus to the witches, who tell him he needs the head of Medusa to turn the Kraken to stone. Perseus then goes to Medusa's island and lops off her head. Afterwards, Calibos appears and sabotages everything. He turns Medusa's head's blood into scorpions, he kills the other soldiers, and he roughs up Perseus pretty bad, but he's eventually slain by the magic sword. Soon, Andromeda is presented to the unleashed Kraken. At the last moment, Perseus swoops in on the Pegasus, side note, who Bubo the owl freed from the swamp, and uses the Medusa head to turn the Kraken into stone. For reals this time, Perseus and Andromeda marry, Zeus is happy, the other gods less so, but hey, they're Greek gods, maturity is not their strong suit. The end.
Maturity is not their strong suit, huh?
No, it isn't. I remember when we were talking about Vulcan, son of Jupiter, because a side note, I'm not a classicist, I'm not a mythology major, I'm a genre film guy. So, you could sit back and say, oh, here's the hierarchy of all the gods and all their adventures and everything that go on. And what I get away from it is they're all pretty terrible. They're all mean, spiteful, easily prone to jealousy and fits of random whatever, just like humans. So there we go. So, Michele, half of the scholar of the Edge of Time, what were your thoughts on revisiting Clash of Titans 81? Oh no, big sigh.
Well, I still think it's a very entertaining film. I think on the revisit, I was really, really sad at how poorly some of the effects aged for the review. I would also say that, yeah, from teenage person that watched it to adult a few decades later, yeah, I would say that it's still entertaining and it was still part of a collection of films that were formative for me with regards to Greek and Roman mythology. So even though it didn't age as well as I had hoped that it would, it's still I still hold it in high regard, along with like Jason and the Argonauts, and a lot of the Sinbad movies that I remember as a kid. This is another film that I think of fondly, even though it hasn't aged as well. So that's my initial thoughts. What about you?
Pretty much the same. So I didn't grow up with it. I didn't watch it, so I didn't really have any baseline to compare it to.
Mhm.
I thought it was fun. It's a fun, more, I'm gonna say kid centric, not really, but kinda peplum film. It basically is a 1960s peplum film done with technology 20 years later. It just same boat. The Harryhausen stuff is always great to see. But this is still the early era of blue screen, and that's the painful stuff is the blue screen stuff. I would say I'll stay, even though it's much older. I still think Jason and the Argonauts is the better movie.
I would actually agree, even though I like the mythology that was covered in Clash of the Titans. Um, I I still think Harryhausen excelled with his effects in Jason and the Argonauts, and I
That
just think
Kraken
it,
is pretty cool.
I just think the Jason film holds up better as far as everything.
Mhm.
Even the pacing, I think, is better in Jason and the Argonauts, storytelling wise. But there's reasons for that. But that's generally.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Perseus mythology, but it looks like they're, basically cramming in like 5 of his adventures into one film, and that's okay. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Um, I didn't see it before, as I said. I'm leaning toward this book that I have in my collection, Epic Films. They have a nice little plot synopsis, a better one than I did. It doesn't have as much snark in it. And a little bit of, production notes in Clash of the Titans. Um, Basically, the big production thing I got out of it was some of it was filmed at the same place that they filmed Jason the Argonauts, some temples in Italy where they fought the skeletons and stuff, as the same temples that they used in this film.
Was it the scenes with the Medusa?
I think so.
Okay. That I did kind of wonder about that because it did look kind of similar um to Jason and the Argonauts.
Jason and those. I'll be there in a second. What's this?
Okay.
Clash CL. But so anyway, this was the last movie Harryhausen did before he retired, and I would say still Jason is the movie that holds up better, but I would say the stop motion in this film is pretty darn good. The Kraken looks awesome.
I think
The
Medusa
Me-
looked great.
Now, the book I have, the Epic Films book, actually they talk a little bit about the Medusa one, that Harryhausen wanted to do a different type of Medusa that was more monstrous.
Mhm.
And so this Medusa has an entire snake-like body. And since they were shooting it in, supposed to be a fire-lit cavern, doing stop motion when you're also trying to do, fire effects is not the funnest thing to do.
Oh wow.
Okay, here we go. Harryhausen and Schneer relocated to Europe specifically to enable them to easily use non-American location shoots that were not familiar to audiences. And Clash of the Titans was filmed in England, Malta, Italy, and Spain, with interior shot at Pinewood, just like James Bond. The exterior of Medusa's lair was filmed at the temples of Paestum in southern Italy, which were previously featured as the home of the blind seer, not the skeletons, in Jason and the Argonauts, and for which the crew was permitted to climb over real ruins. It's still,
That's neat.
it is cool. Okay, so Sword and Sandal film, early 80s Sword and Sandal film. This is, right as Conan's coming out, right as the strongman cycle of films are coming out. So I always got to ask the question, since this is a peplum, Sword and Sandal, what is the emphasis on the body? And the lead actor, Harry Hamlin, young guy at the time, yeah, they were like, check out this hot dude. So they were pretty focused on showing off his, physique, even though he's not a strong guy. I'm assuming it's more for the younger folks to swoon over.
It's really early the before they really got into the hypermasculinity of the body, the physical body, with like Conan, Rambo, and all those. So it was still kind of that, more, I'm going to say, average guy look, and he's meant to be like late teens.
Mhm.
Even though Harry Hamlin, I think, was a little bit older, who then went on to do LA Law. He was like the main attorney in LA Law. So
I was kind of uh shocked, I guess that's not really the word I want to use, but that there was nudity in the film. And because I'm considering this more on the kid fantasy side of things. One scene of not sexualized nudity where, they're showing the mom, nursing Perseus, and then at the end they do a sexualized shot of Andromeda's butt. And You wouldn't see that in 60s peplum, although this would have been post-porno peplum, post-Caligula, all that stuff. But, seeing brief nudity in a film, a peplum film, was interesting because they've always been like, how much of the body can we show without showing everything? So, I mean, thumbs up for me. I think that's just kind of transgressive for the genre. It's so weird that the peplum genre is the most body-centric cinematic genre out there, but without going too much into nudity. It's still based on like chasteness and other things like that. So just throwing that out there.
Well, and it's that's a good point because the romantic aspects are usually pretty chaste in these films.
It's pretty chaste in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Andromeda, for all purposes, she's a damsel, but yeah, she's captured basically twice, has to be rescued twice. But on the other hand, it's also one of those, just like we saw Vulcan, son of Jupiter with Bella Cortez. Bella's all like, "You must take me on your adventure," and the guy's like, "Heck no, I'm gonna ride off without you," and forces her to walk, and she gets captured. Same thing happens in this movie. Drama is like, "I want to go on your adventure," and Percy's like, "No, no, you should stay here, please." Okay, and then he ditches her a little bit later on. And I get that. That's kind of old school storytelling, the very black and white. You have to have the fair maiden be rescued. Would I prefer something more transgressive? Absolutely. Do I fault the movie for that? No. I mean, again, that's based on super classic storytelling. So, and I think Andromeda had more to do still than we see with most captured damsels in these types of films. She has a little bit more dialogue, a little bit more rapport with Perseus, more kind of I would say smaller things to do, like, hey everyone, follow me as we travel off and stuff. So they give her tiny bits of agency.
They do, and I think that if they hadn't had her go on the adventure with Perseus, at least until they got to that one point where um she knew he was going to continue on his adventure without her. It gave her a little more agency and a little more screen time.
So while watching the film, this was the big question I have, and this is uh when we talk about strong men, the Hercules type characters, these films, a lot of the strength comes from within and stuff like that. um my question for Perseus, I kind of want to ask everyone, is how much of his adventure was he actually able to do on his own? Because and it's not wrong or anything, it just, you know how much of his success is because of not himself, but because of either his friends and colleagues stepping in, or intervention from the gods giving him gifts and stuff. If you take away the sword, helmet, shield, and his buddies, how much can Perseus actually do? If you ask that question for a Hercules type character, the answer would be, well, everything. Nothing can stop the Hercules. He'll just rip out a tree and bonk you on the head with it. How much can Perseus actually do? How much does his own ingenuity come through on his adventure, and how much is basically other people doing things? And again, it's not wrong. I mean, a lot of fantasy movies are just like that. It's a party of adventurers. Each brings a specific skill. I'm the fighter. I'm the magic user. I'm the, thief, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to put to you first before I give my thoughts.
Okay. So I was actually thinking about that as I was writing my notes, that I had a hard time believing him as the hero and his hero's journey in this. In part of what I was seeing on the screen, and the fact, just for the points that you brought up, that he received gifts from the gods that was meant to help him. But he is essentially, for what we know of his background, is that he grew up on kind of sheltered island. He had a good life, and then suddenly
He's a nepo baby.
and suddenly he is in Joppa, and he's dropped literally in this Colosseum, where Amun is living, faced with originally theatrics, and then they become friends. But it made it kind of challenging to really see him as a true hero because of the fact of knowing a bit about his background.
He's had no conflict at all up until
No, and so yes, I mean he's fished, he's probably done some hunting and things like that. So I think he does have some natural abilities.
he does horseback ride. They do show
Yeah. But yeah, that was mostly what they showed for his expertise, that he could ride a horse. And I mean, he was able to kind of break the Pegasus so that he could ride the Pegasus.
that. But he needed Amon's help to do all that.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
But he was Amon was an assistant. I felt that was a little more believable than a lot of the other things, where he definitely needed the assistance of others.
Like he almost falls off a mountain, so Thallo has to catch him. A whole bunch of other, instances as well that he has to. And again, that's not a wrong story. That's actually a very perfect moral. Is you can't go at things alone. You need to rely on other people to help you out.
Well, and I do think that was part of the narrative stories that were being told, that we were seeing. Like you mentioned Return of the Jedi, which I think was, well, Star Wars kind of an ensemble cast. You then had that reinforced with a mega hit with Return of the Jedi. I do want to interject that I recently read a retelling of the Medusa and Perseus storylines, and that was Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes.
Where's your prop?
In another room.
Oh.
But I didn't even think to bring it out. But there has been a recent, over, I'm going to say the last 5, maybe 7 years or whatever, to actually revisit classics. And I did read this book recently, in which Medusa was originally a maiden. She was a beautiful maiden, which kind of follows the Ovid, the Roman poet's version of the mythologies. And in this novel, Perseus is he is like practically helpless. And so I did find that kind of actually interesting, that you're examining this, because when I read that book, Perseus is there's a critique about the fact that he gets these gifts, the gods are helping him, he's not very knowledgeable, and how much could he actually do on his own? And the gods think he's pretty stupid and helpless. So, it is interesting to then watch this movie and kind of think in those terms of having read this novel and taking a different look at these mythologies. And so I do find that interesting, that if this had been a Hercules character, I think that you're right. I think he could have had more of a natural agency that would have been believable, and he would have had a hero's journey that's more in keeping and more aligned with that character. I did have a difficult time really kind of engaging with the characters, in part for that kind of unable to suspend the disbelief, as well as the fact that with the ensemble cast, we weren't able to really kind of like catch on to a main character, because it really was gods, humans, and kind of going back and forth.
Well, they do that in Jason the Argonauts too. The humans are all pawns in their game. But actually, as a side note, it's funny that as a side note, the actors and actresses that play the gods is like the most stacked cast I have seen.
Yeah,
And they have like the fewest scenes in the film, though. But yeah, Laurence Olivier, Ursula Andress.
Well, who I don't think had like more than like maybe 1 or 2 lines.
Right.
This was truly like
A day shoot.
a day shoot for all of the stack ensemble, and then all the newcomers and kind of young up and coming actors were the ones that were the humans.
Mhm.
So
I get it.
except for Burgess Meredith, who was on. So
Yeah, Bert, he was a scene stiller. I'd give it to him.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So
I thought he did great.
yeah, thinking on Perseus, so I can't really approach him as a Herculean style character. I can approach him as a normal me and you type character, and with a big, I'm gonna say, cheat code entered in to give him a good start on his quest. But there is one scene where if we're talking about hero's journey and stuff, yeah, he can't be 100% successful without his gadgets and his crew. But his fight against Medusa, though, that I do think that is 100% him. Now, granted, he does have a magic sword, and the shield, I don't think is it's just a shield. I mean, at the beginning, they do show Zeus talking to him through the shield, but after that, it's just a shield. It's just a nice reflective shield. But you know what? It's his own ingenuity to toss the shield on the statue, to catch Medusa's eye, to make her go that way so he can lop her off. And again, granted, he has a magic sword to do it all, but the actual trickery to do all that stuff is from him. And I like to think that on his journey so far, this is his very slow progression to maybe becoming more autonomous. Now, granted, that still goes out the door in the next scene where, the owl saves the day and all that other stuff. But I like to think that maybe that's the one moment that we see Perseus as more than man, as a demigod, because, he's half god, that he's actually able to do something on his own.
Demigod. That's a good point, because he is a demigod, but for all intents and purposes, he's really human.
Right.
Yeah. He doesn't show all those godly attributes. And maybe that's because this is maybe early in his adventure. Maybe we get Wrath of the Titans. So, maybe we'll see more of that, or in the remake of Clash of the Titans from 2011 or something.
I know it's getting ahead of ourselves. I'm actually kind of pumped to see those films. And if I
am too.
Make a shameless plug real quick, the new Peplum, edited by yours truly, has an essay about Clash and Wrath of the Titans in it, on bodies and armies and stuff like that. So plug.
I'll go away.
What's that?
I'll go away.
That's right. What else? I guess the owl is cool. The owl is overpowered, though. I at the end of the movie, I almost kind of felt, couldn't you just send the owl on your journey at this point and have him just come fetching back? Hey, I decapitated Medusa for you, freed the stallion, did all this other stuff, got the crystal ball from the witches. That owl is overpowered. The owl's the true hero of the Clash of the Titans story.
Yes, it's like having the extra dice, in your roll, when you get to use like an extra couple of dice, and you're like really powerful.
Now, when we were watching, you pointed out the way the owl's talking. It reminded you of R2-D2, and I think that's on purpose, because this is right when Return of the Jedi came out. You've had a couple years of Star Wars. People love Star Wars. People love R2-D2. I think the owl is truly a mythological, in this film, R2-D2 basically communicates through beeps and whatever. R2 also has hidden compartments and can do all this other stuff that saves the day. Yeah, the owl is basically R2-D2.
Yeah, in the Wikipedia entry for the movie, there is a little section about the special effects, and there is a paragraph on Bubo, in which Harryhausen claimed that Bubo was created before Star Wars was released. So he said that
So other people have made the comparison, obviously.
Oh yeah, other
Okay.
people have made the comparison, but in actuality, Harryhausen had actually created the character prior, but that doesn't mean that the beeps and things like that weren't kind of accentuated for this film. But you basically have Luke Skywalker, Perseus, and his R2D2 character.
May I comment something here?
Hmm.
I remember when the movie came out, and there was a lot of merchandising with the movie. And the figures that they made of Perseus and everybody else were the same size as the Star Wars figures. They weren't the same size or the same shape as the He-Man figures, which had also come out at the time. They were, hyper masculine. And
Mhm.
He-Man, before they lost the license or couldn't get the license, was supposed to be Conan, and they were going to do a line of Conan things. But Conan also, the film, showed a lot of nudity. So there was all this talk going on as to why they didn't make the Conan movie, and He-Man came out as a result of all that adventuring. But yeah, the merchandising was very much like Star Wars, and uh,
Hmm.
how it was released, what it looked like, and so forth.
Yeah, I actually remember having some of the little figurines from the Star Wars. I wish I still had them because, of course, they're worth bank nowadays. But yeah, I had some of those. I didn't realize that Clash of the Titans had actually come out with some, but that would have made sense because that was early merchandising. And they were learning that merchandising was very helpful to a movie.
There
Wait,
was an oversized Bubo, and there was even a giant Kraken. I wish I'd picked that up.
Oh, that would have been really cool.
the Talos.
We have the Talos character from Jason and the Argonauts that we
Hold on.
got. I think we got that from
Scarecrow video.
Scarecrow Video. So we
I
have
think I've
that.
shown this off before, but yeah. There's my it's very shiny, but my giant Talos.
Very cool.
There we go. Because
It's 12 inches tall, and then has some of the lineup of other characters and stuff like that. I know for me in rewatching the film, it reminded me how much I enjoyed the mythology and why I had enjoyed Jason and the Argonauts so much, and then Clash of the Titans was very
this movie you're talking about?
yeah. And I feel like this one was also informative. Was it accurate? No, not necessarily, but it it was definitely a jumping off point and still could be a jumping off point for people that do have an interest in mythology. And for me, I thought it was both a pro and con, because you do like having the Greek mythology. It's great storytelling. It could have been more accurate and still be just as entertaining, as exciting, as I felt.
See, accuracy for me is out the window. I take these movies as just kind of their own retellings and other things. But I guess, having not grown up with the film, but I know of the film. It is a pop culture thing. Unleash the Kraken. Come on, everyone knows that line. There's a big deal of the film, and after watching it, I can see why there was a big deal with the film, and I still think that big deal holds up. Even though the that's the only thing I really fault it for is bad blue screen. And unfortunately, like Star Wars, where George Lucas revisits every couple years to tweak a little things right, wrong, or different, but he does correct aging bad special effects in his films. Something like Clash of the Titans doesn't have that luxury, and that's okay. It's a relic for its time to see how far away we've come from blue screen to green screen to whatever screen we are in now. But point is for an epic at this time, after I would say the genre had been more or less dormant for a little while.
Yes.
And then coming in right around as the barbarian genre is taking off, I see its place. I see the big deal it was, and I could see why its legacy endures and why, why not revisit it 30 years later to do a remake on it. That's why I'm curious to see what the remake's like. I have a feeling I'll probably really enjoy it.
Yeah, that was one of my pros that I said about this film is the fact that you have that very much that epic feel, and there's a nod to the classicalism and antiquity of the 60s cinema. I think it really does harken a lot of that kind of, positive type viewing of the 60s related to those epic films of the 60s. And I think it very much is a part of that recycle of the 80s when we got into the barbarian, the He-Mans and the Conans and Beastmaster and all that. And I think it's it gives a good benchmark for then what we see later in the decade with those other genres and how masculinized the male body became, and to some extent female, because if we have Red Sonja, how muscular she was and yet still had femininity, versus Andromeda, for instance, who is still, she does get some agency. And we even see that in some of the other films that we've watched over the past 6 months that are from this era, where we're seeing women get a little bit more agency. Not like Red Sonja, for instance, and, kind of that story setup. But it is showing, it is kind of documenting in our cinema how female agency is coming on the rise again. So yeah. Locales I thought were great. I enjoyed the locales actually.
Sets were good. City sets
Yeah.
were great. Again,
No.
it's only the bad blue screen, but some of the sets were exaggerated. I had to laugh. Like when he's in the swamp, I see all the human skeletons laying around, and I'm like, that's just cartoon, and that's nothing wrong with that. I thought it was hilarious, and it kind of made me think of when we watched Hercules in the Haunted World. Just kind of when he's in the underworld, how kind of, I don't want to say silly, but it's a fun scare. And so,
Mhm.
the classic, I walk into the dragon's cave and there's dead bodies everywhere. Walk into the evil swamp, there's dead bodies everywhere, just kind of chilling around. And
Mhm.
uh, I like those embellishments. I think they're funny. Not funny, comical, haha, but more fun as in that's a genre trope. I appreciate those things. When he went to fight Medusa in the temple, he's looking at all the statues and stuff. It actually made me think of when I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey. In that game, when you're Cassandra or whoever the other person is, there are missions that you actually have to hunt down and kill a Medusa. And where is she at? She's in the Medusa temple. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I see where the game takes its inspiration from.
Yeah, I will say that was actually a really good scene. I do like that you brought up about uh Perseus and his fighting abilities, and just using a little bit of trickery, which does align to his hunting and fishing and things like that. I really liked that set quite a bit. I thought they really did a nice job with that. And I really liked the way they made Medusa look. I actually thought that that was some of the best effects that it did. I also like Calibus, which reading in the notes from Wikipedia, they mention Harryhausen's work in I think it's Sinbad and oh
Hey, the
gosh.
Tiger?
Yeah, which I remember seeing back in the late 70s, actually the same year that Star Wars came out. And I can definitely see, you know, things that he went back, reused, but reimagined for this film.
And then films post this plucked from Clash of the Titans, our video games.
Yeah,
Plucked from Clash of the
exactly.
Titans.
I will say, when I was a kid, and I think this bears. It's always good to go back and take a look at movies, because you do see them with kind of rose-colored glasses as time passes. And in rewatching this, there was a few things that I hadn't caught as a kid. It's kind of like when you know, hear a song on the radio that you remember as a kid and you don't get it. And now you get all that, all the nuances. And I definitely, you know, at the time when I originally watched this, didn't really quite get the nuance of the power play between gods and their control over humans and how humans were really playthings. I mean, I think that was in Jason and the Argonauts, but it wasn't, you know, connecting for me like it did with this rewatch. The other thing is, I hadn't at the time when I saw this understood really the concept of titans um, versus gods, and so that was kind of interesting that they brought that in. And I think that if you know, had a better understanding of mythology, like I had no understanding of mythology when I saw this film originally. So now knowing a bit more about those nuances actually added to the rewatch. And made it even more enjoyable, and even more entertaining, and solidified its place in this genre in the early 80s even more. And definitely would say recommend, you know, this film for people to watch, especially now that we're going to go into the remake from whenever it was,
2010.
2010.
So
And I'm actually really looking forward to taking a look at what they do in the remake, because there's so many opportunities to do even more with the story. So
well,
I'm really anxious to see what they do.
you know, give or take a couple years, you know, this is the same time frame that Immortals came out, and we watched that one, the Henry Cavill one where he's fighting
Mhm.
Titans and stuff.
Yeah.
And if I recall, I like that movie. I like that one quite a bit.
Yeah.
So bring that Neo-Peplum sentimentality to Clash of the Titans, and I think we'll have a cool movie.
Yeah. So next month we will be discussing the remake, right?
Clash of Titans 2010.
So we will be doing that one next month. So obviously we hope that everybody will maybe watch the film. Definitely watch the 81, then watch the remake. And then of course join us for our conversation and see what points we bring up, what maybe we miss. Hopefully we don't miss anything. But definitely looking forward to that conversation. Any last remarks for you?
No, enjoyed it. You know, just get past the not aged well green screen, and I think this is a great, you know, 80s early next wave cycle peplum film. Recommended. I liked it. It was fun. A couple laughs here, a couple oohs, ahs. Medusa fight good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Clockwork Bird, awesome.
Yeah. Well, with that, we will pass the torch of knowledge back to you, Hercules, and finish up the episode.
I just want to comment on some of the things that you pointed out. In actual Greek mythology, Hercules took things from the temple of the gods to defend Thebes. And so that was considered blasphemous, but he saved them from the people who were oppressing them and taking many cows in tribute. Later on, the gods gave him a bunch of stuff. They gave him like magic armor and magic weapons and things like that. And he ditched them all and just kept the club, which he chose for himself. So going to the point, Perseus' story is very old, and he's actually, I think, Hercules' great grandfather, if I'm counting.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And although Wrath of the Gods, the original one, that was an animated cartoon based on a comic book, had them as contemporaries, but that's another story altogether. The story in the movie was, of course, not accurate. Like Joppa was actually Ethiopia, Ammon was invented, Bubodial was invented, Calibos was invented, and homeless people like and situations were invented. But all those stories did take place in that one adventure. I think in the original stories, the king wanted to marry his mother. And that's what set him off going on the adventure because he couldn't give a gift. And the king, to get rid of him, suggested, why don't you bring me Medusa's head? Yeah, that's a ticket. Yeah.
Yeah, figuring that he would never be able to do it. And that is the story
Just
that's conveyed in Stone Blind is that he went off to get Medusa's head so that way he could save his mom from being married to the king.
And Pegasus was in the story, but he shot from the ocean as the droplets of blood from Medusa's head fell into the ocean, and Pegasus rose from the foam. And he was actually ridden by Bellerophon, who was another hero altogether with what the Chimera. So the ancients did this too. Mythology is a very living thing. And by doing whatever you do with the myths, you take the journey. So even if you're reading a comic book or watching a movie, you're taking that journey. If you write something or put it in a role-playing game, you're taking that journey. It's a living thing. And the fact that these things have existed for thousands of years speaks to the power of stories.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And you guys are master storytellers with a long publication history and also many feats of creativity that you regularly indulge in. How can people find you, enter your world, and explore the worlds that your imaginations and your scholarship open up?
Miss Super Wet Presence here can go first.
So that's being facetious and a lot of sarcasm. So I do have a website, michellebrittany.com, that I almost never go to. I'm on Facebook, but it's usually, to say, hey, look at my cats. So
Or look at my crafts.
I do a lot of arts and crafts and things like that. I do have a business, Art of Michele Brittany, that I am hoping to get a little bit more going on that this year. I recently started a job where I'm responsible for designing like greeting cards for make and takes. And I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it does take a lot of time to conceptualize what I'm doing for these kind of kits and things. So yeah, finding my balance. So there'll be more out there down the road, but super duper social media, king over here. If you want to see what I've been doing associated with, scholars and things like that, Nick is all about that.
Sorry, one of our other cats, she wants attention. So I'm at nickdiak.com. I update it fairly regularly, basically every other week. I have essays published there that I don't publish elsewhere. I share Michelle's, vidcasts and stuff she's in. But yeah, go to nickdiak.com, has links to all the other social media I'm in. My bibliography of stuff I'm in, a giant index of all of our podcasts and vidcasts that we're in. So that's a pretty much good one-stop shop for everything.
Thank you very much. I don't remember if I invited you to play in our new playground. We started Pop Culture Pantheons, which is an exploration of how people play with mythology still. And as you guys mentioned in the movie and in the book about Perseus and Medusa, these stories are told in various ways, and each way points to different things that are elements in the story and looks at it in a new way. So that's one of my fascinations in life. So we're going to focus more exclusively on that. So you're welcome to play along if you'd like. So far, Brian Walker and a couple of my comic book guys and one of my paranormal phenomena guys are interested in playing along. So you're invited as well.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, definitely would like that. So yeah, we would be very much interested in that. I love reading about the stories and love to learn more about the mythologies.
Thank you again very much. You're awesome people, and I'm very blessed to have you in my life. And
It's good to see you, sir.
Take care.
Bye.